10 years ago, in the small town of West Briar, nestled between rolling hills and aging strip malls, Theo Maddox made a decision that would define the next decade of his life. He was 25, fresh into a promising career as a systems engineer, with a modest apartment, a growing savings account, and dreams of one day starting his own robotics firm. But that year, something else happened, something that would reroute all those dreams. It started with a dinner at his parents' house. He hadn't been home in a few weeks, busy with work and adjusting to adult life. His mother had called him earlier that week with a simple, loaded phrase, "Can we talk?" Just us, as a family. The kitchen smelled like roasted chicken, the kind his mom always made when she wanted to soften someone up. His father sat at the head of the table, his face carefully neutral. And then there was Eric, Theo's younger brother by 3 years, wearing a fresh university hoodie and that familiar pleading look in his eyes. Eric had just been accepted into an elite private university, something the family hadn't expected. Their parents had managed to support them growing up, but tuition at Westbrook Tech was another level, $80,000 for the 4-year program, not including living expenses. "We wouldn't be asking if we had another way," his mother had said, her voice gentle, guilt-laced. Eric worked so hard. This could change everything for him. Theo stared at them, his fork motionless on his plate. His dad chimed in next. "You're doing well, son. We're not asking for a gift. Just help. We'll pay you back, every cent." Eric leaned in. "Come on, man. You know I'll make good on it. I'll graduate, get a great job, and I'll pay you back with interest if you want." Theo wanted to say no. He really, truly did. He had been saving for his own future, planning a down payment on a home, maybe a business loan down the road. This would wipe out everything. Worse, he'd have to take out a loan under his own name to make it work. But they made it sound like refusing would be betrayal. "You're the responsible one," his mother said softly. "And we're family. Family helps each other." That word, family, felt like a blade with a ribbon tied around it. And so he said yes. He signed the papers, transferred the money, co-signed student housing leases, and swallowed his fears. When the bank transferred the funds, Eric hugged him, grinning. Their parents thanked him over and over again. "You won't regret this," his father had promised. But he did. And it didn't take long. Eric went off to school, and for a while, everything seemed fine. Theo kept working, pushing through extra hours to build his career back up. He didn't ask for repayments right away, after all, Eric was still in school. But he checked in often, always politely hinting that when the time came, he'd need to start getting paid back. Then Eric graduated. There was no celebration. No family dinner. Just silence. At first, Theo thought it was a mistake. A missed call, a busy schedule. But his messages started going unanswered. His calls rang endlessly. Texts sat undelivered with no replies. He tried their parents next, same outcome. Avoidance. Distance. Silence. A few weeks passed. Then months. Then years. He received one email from Eric, a short, cold message saying, "I'm figuring things out. Can't talk right now. Please stop pushing." After that, nothing. Meanwhile, the loan payments didn't stop. Theo had co-signed everything. Interest piled up. The debt became his alone. He moved into a smaller apartment. Cut luxuries. Picked up freelance gigs in addition to his full-time job. He stopped traveling. Stopped dating. His 20s passed in a blur of spreadsheets, code, and unpaid bills. The bitterness didn't come all at once. It built slowly, like water rising behind a dam. He began to see the manipulation for what it was. Not just desperation, but entitlement. They had never intended to pay him back. They had used him because he was the dependable one, the one who wouldn't fight, who wouldn't abandon. Years slipped by. Theo made progress. He paid down the loan, bit by bit, year by year. He avoided his hometown, avoided holidays, and avoided anything that might remind him of the night his family redefined what love meant to them. Until one morning, 10 years to the month of that family dinner, his phone buzzed awake on the nightstand. 27 missed calls. His stomach turned. He scrolled through the call log. Mom. Dad. Eric. Over and over. No voicemail. No apology. No explanation. Just a digital scream from a family that had forgotten him. Until now. He stared at the screen, unmoved. Then a text popped up from his mother. "Theo, please, it's urgent. Call us back." He turned off the phone and set it face down. He made breakfast, Scrambled eggs, toast, and black coffee, his daily ritual. He sat in the quiet of his apartment, now comfortably furnished, paid off, and filled with little luxuries he had bought for himself: a custom desk, an espresso machine, a leather reading chair. He had clawed his way to peace, to freedom. And now they wanted back in. Theo Maddox didn't check his phone again until that evening. Not because he wasn't curious, he was, but because he knew what waited on the other side of that glowing screen wasn't sincerity. It was need. After 10 years of nothing, 27 missed calls didn't say "we miss you." They screamed "we need you again." He finally powered his phone back on during his evening walk, just as the sun dipped behind the rooftops of his quiet neighborhood. Notifications flooded in. Missed calls. Voicemails. Messages. And then, just as he expected, a new text popped up from his mother. "Theo, we need to talk. It's urgent. Please call me back. It's about Eric." He stopped walking. The words hung on the screen, cold and predictable. Eric. The name alone stirred up more than bitterness. It was the linchpin of all his regrets. The face of his sacrifice. The face of their betrayal. For a moment, he considered replying. Then, without really thinking, he typed. "What happened?" The reply came so fast he almost dropped the phone. "He lost his job months ago. He didn't want anyone to know. He's behind on bills. The house is at risk. The bank's involved. Please, Theo. We don't know what to do." He stood on the sidewalk, motionless. A cool breeze passed, ruffling the trees. And in that moment, the truth landed squarely in his chest. They weren't reaching out because they missed him. They weren't suddenly sorry. They were in trouble. And just like before, they wanted him to fix it. He walked the rest of the way home without replying. He didn't need to. They'd keep trying. When he got home, another message was waiting. "We know we hurt you, but Adam has a family. The kids need a place to live. Please don't punish them for our mistakes." Ah. There it was. The classic guilt trip. The children. He chuckled bitterly, dropping his keys into the bowl by the door. "They never cared when I was eating instant noodles every night. Or when I couldn't sleep because of debt collectors. But now I'm supposed to swoop in because there are kids involved." Theo fixed himself dinner and sat in silence, his mind turning. By the time the clock neared midnight, his decision was made. The next morning, he sent one message. "How much do you owe?" His phone buzzed less than a minute later. A call from Eric. He let it ring. Then another text. "Bro, please. Can we talk?" And finally, his mother again. $30,000. That's the minimum to stop the foreclosure. But there's more. He's behind on utilities, credit cards, everything. Theo read the message twice, jaw tight. It wasn't just the number. It was how easy it was for them to write it out, to assume he'd just give. That night, Eric showed up at his apartment. Theo had barely opened the door when his brother spoke, voice low and anxious. "Hey, man. I didn't know where else to go." Theo stepped aside without a word, watching his brother shuffle inside. He looked older, more haggard than Theo remembered, dark circles under his eyes, clothes loose and wrinkled. They sat. The silence stretched. "I messed up," Eric said eventually. "I lost my job. I tried to get another one, but nothing stuck. I didn't tell Mom and Dad until the bills piled up. Now we're out of time." Theo crossed his arms. "So what do you want from me? Spell it out." Eric swallowed hard. "Whatever you can help with. Anything, man. Even just to buy some time." Theo raised an eyebrow. $30,000 is a lot of time. Eric looked down at his hands. "I know. I'm not asking for a handout. I'll pay you back." Theo snorted. "Like last time?" Silence. Eric rubbed his face. "That's fair. I deserve that." Theo leaned forward, voice calm. "You're here because you have no leverage. So here's my offer. I'll cover the full amount. But you sign over the house to me. Legally. Completely." Eric blinked. "What? Are you serious?" "Dead serious," Theo replied. "You keep living there. You raise your kids there. I won't evict you, unless you stop paying rent. But the house becomes mine." Eric stood up, pacing. "That's crazy. That's my house. That's my kids' home." "You're about to lose it either way," Theo said. "At least this way, you get stability." Eric hesitated, breathing fast. Then, with a bitter nod, he said, "Fine. You win." Theo didn't smile. "It's not about winning. It's about accountability." A week later, the paperwork was finalized. Theo paid off the debt. The house deed changed hands. Eric and his family stayed, but things had shifted. Then came the second betrayal. 2 months passed. Rent was due. Nothing came. Theo sent a polite reminder. No reply. Then another. Finally, a firm message: rent is overdue. If you can't pay, I'll have to start the eviction process. Eric called within minutes, fuming. You can't be serious. I gave you terms. You agreed. You're actually going to kick your own brother out? Theo took a slow sip of his coffee. That's up to you. The shouting started. The blame. The insults. You've changed, Eric snapped. You used to care about family. I did, Theo said quietly. Until family used me like a bank. Then came the final twist, an email from their parents. Subject: legal action. Theo laughed when he read it. You manipulated your brother, it read. You acted in bad faith. This will not stand. Theo didn't respond. He forwarded it to his attorney with a note: handle this. The court threw the case out in a single hearing. Eric stood outside the courthouse, red-faced and livid. You're not my brother anymore, he hissed. Theo didn't flinch. I stopped being your brother when you stopped treating me like one. The gavel hit the wood with a hollow knock, echoing through the small courtroom like a drumroll on Judgment Day. Case dismissed. Theo didn't flinch. He stood, nodded respectfully at the judge, and walked out without sparing a glance at Eric or their parents seated 2 rows behind him. He didn't need to see their expressions to know exactly what they looked like: humiliated, confused, fuming. Because for the first time in their lives, someone had called their bluff, and it had cost them everything. 2 months earlier, Theo had given them a lifeline, a deal no bank, no lawyer, no relative in their right mind would have offered. And they spat on it the moment it required effort. Now, they were drowning in the same hole they had shoved him into a decade ago. The moment Theo stepped outside, he heard footsteps behind him. Fast. Stumbling. Then a voice, sharp and bitter. You're the worst kind of person, you know that? Theo turned calmly. Eric was there, chest heaving, fists clenched. Their father stood in the distance, arms crossed, jaw tight. Their mother wiped at her eyes but didn't approach. No, Theo said. I know exactly what kind of person I am. The kind that survives. The kind that pays off an $80,000 loan he didn't owe because he believed in a family that didn't believe in him. Eric jabbed a finger at him. You think this is justice? You think this makes you better than us? Theo stepped closer, lowering his voice. No. But it makes me free. Eric's face twisted in disbelief. You took my house. I saved your house. You chose not to pay. You broke the deal. That house was going to be gone whether I stepped in or not. Eric laughed bitterly. You've changed, man. You used to care. I used to hope you'd change, Theo said. I waited for years, Eric. Not just for repayment, but for a single call, a message, a how are you doing? But you only remember I exist when you're in trouble. Eric looked away. Don't worry, Theo added. You'll find a place. But not on my dime. Theo turned and walked to his car, the weight of years sliding off his back. For the first time since that loan, he felt taller. That night, he sent one final notice: eviction in 30 days. No negotiations. Within a week, Eric and his family were gone. Moved into a cramped apartment on the edge of town. No yard. No space. The same Eric who once bragged about making it out of Westbriar was now job hopping and living paycheck to paycheck. And Theo? He kept thriving. With the legal case behind him, he refocused his energy on his software consultancy. He expanded into tech development, building AI tools for small businesses. The financial strain that had once shackled him was gone. He traveled. He dated. He breathed. But his family couldn't let go. They started with texts. Mom, Theo, please. This is going too far. Dad, your mother can't sleep. She's falling apart. Eric, are you happy now? You took their peace. You broke everything. Theo read them all. Reply to none. Then came the email. Subject: you're still our son. Theo, we know we failed you. We know we made mistakes. But we're your parents. That must still mean something. Eric's kids are scared. You were always the strong one, the kind one. Please don't punish us for our failures. He stared at the screen. They still didn't get it. It was never about the house. Or the money. Or even the past. It was about respect. And how for 10 years, they had shown him none. The next morning, Theo sent his last message. I struggled for a decade because of you. You spent that decade pretending I didn't exist. I guess now we're even. Then, he blocked every number, every email, every avenue they had left. The fallout was swift. Eric moved from job to job, barely holding down shifts. Word spread through their small town, how the Maddox family had lost their house, how Eric had failed to support his family, how Theo had stepped in and walked away richer for it. At first, the community blamed Theo. Whispers at church, angry stares at the grocery store. But truth has a way of rising. Friends began asking questions. Quietly, some admitted they'd been used by the Maddox family too. Eventually, the tide turned. Theo became the success story. Eric, the cautionary tale. Their parents, once respected figures in the community, faded into social obscurity. They tried to rewrite the narrative, but no one bought it. And Theo? He thrived. He bought a loft in the city. Invested. Mentored young developers from working-class families. He donated anonymously to students with no access to higher education. He didn't do it out of guilt. He did it because he wanted to give someone else the chance he never got. And he never once looked back. Until 1 year later. One last message. 12 months. That's how long it had been since Theo Maddox last heard from anyone in his family. A full calendar year of pure silence, no calls, no texts, no manipulative guilt trips. And for Theo, it had been the best year of his life. His company had secured a government contract, his investments were finally paying dividends, and he'd even begun teaching part-time at a tech incubator, mentoring the next generation of underdog coders. His world, once defined by sacrifice and obligation, now revolved around growth, autonomy, and peace. Then one morning, as he sipped coffee on his balcony overlooking the city, his phone buzzed. Email. Subject, can we talk? He didn't need to check the sender. The title said it all. Curiosity eventually won out, and he opened it. From, Mom. Theo, it's been a year. We miss you. Please, can we just talk? We don't want anything from you, we just want our son back. I know we weren't perfect parents. I know we made mistakes. But we're getting older. Your father isn't doing well. Do you really want things to end like this? Please. Just call me, one last time. Theo leaned back in his chair, letting the message linger on the screen. 1 year of silence, and the first words out of their mouths were about them, their age, their regrets, their need to be heard. Not once had they ever truly asked how he had coped, survived, or healed. Not once had they acknowledged what they'd taken from him. Only what they'd lost. Before he could close the tab, another message hit his inbox. Subject, urgent, please read. From, Eric. Theo, I get it now. I know I screwed up. I know I lost everything. But this isn't about me anymore, it's about my kids. They need stability. They need family. I don't care what you think of me, but please, don't shut them out because of what I did. Let me fix this. Let me show you I've changed. Theo stared at the email, unsure whether to laugh or scream. Fix this? What was there to fix? The house was long gone. The court case, dismissed. The debt, paid. And the damage? Irreparable. This wasn't about an apology. It wasn't even about reconciliation. It was about survival. Again. They were scrambling because their safety net had walked away and never looked back. He didn't reply. Not to his mother. Not to his brother. Instead, he shut his laptop, stood up, and spent the rest of the morning walking through a local farmer's market, picking up fresh fruit and a second-hand book on creative leadership. He smiled at strangers. He breathed in the scent of lavender and oranges. And for the first time, the emails didn't buzz like bees in his brain. They were just static. Faint background noise. 2 more days passed, and then the messages resumed. This time, from all sides. Mom. Please don't do this to us. We're your parents. Dad. We raised you, Theo. That has to count for something. Eric. You took everything. Are you happy now? You want my kids to grow up thinking family is disposable? Theo didn't respond. And that's when the desperation turned manipulative. They started contacting people close to him. An old high school friend messaged him, saying his mom had reached out just wanting to reconnect. A former coworker texted that she got a call from someone claiming to be his brother, begging for a meeting. They were fishing. Probing for weak spots. He blocked every number. Changed his personal email. Set his socials to private. Not because he was hiding, but because he refused to play defense ever again. Still, the final message came. Subject: one last chance. From Mom. Theo, I don't know if you leave and read this, but please just hear me out. Your father is sick. The doctors say it's serious. We don't know how much time we have left. I know we hurt you. I know we made mistakes. But Theo, we're still your family. We still love you. Can't we just fix this before it's too late? Theo reread the last line 3 times. Fix this before it's too late. Too late for who? For them? It had been too late for him 10 years ago. When he was drowning in debt and they left him in silence. When he was chasing overdue payments and they celebrated holidays without him. When he was alone on birthdays, anniversaries, even after medical scares. He remembered calling them once from an ER with a panic attack, and no one answered. No, Theo thought, this wasn't about fixing anything. It was about avoiding accountability. He could have replied. Could have written a long, heartfelt message about everything he had endured. About the sleepless nights, the crushing loneliness, the thousands of quiet moments where he'd wished, just once, for a sign that he mattered to them beyond his utility. But he didn't write any of that. He didn't reply at all. Instead, he did something he should have done a long time ago. He clicked delete. Then he clicked block sender. He powered down his laptop, grabbed his keys, and stepped out into the warm spring air. There was a cafe across town he hadn't tried yet. A gallery opening he wanted to see. A world to enjoy. And for the first time, he didn't feel like a bad son. He felt like a free man. 1 year after Theo Maddox chose silence over closure, peace over family performance, and boundaries over inherited guilt, he found himself in a place he never imagined reaching, not just physically, but emotionally. He had moved cities. The old apartment, once dim and practical, had been replaced by a modern loft on the top floor of a renovated textile mill. Exposed brick, tall windows, shelves lined with books and personal projects, and a kitchen that always smelled faintly of espresso. It wasn't lavish, it was intentional. Every piece of furniture had a story. Every wall had space to grow. Theo didn't think about Eric anymore. Or his parents. Not with anger. Not even with sadness. It was more like remembering an old story you once believed in but had outgrown. They had become echoes. Lessons. Markers on a map he no longer needed to navigate. What filled that space instead was life. He traveled, for real this time. A spontaneous trip to Kyoto in the spring. A road trip through the Pacific Northwest with 2 friends he'd met through a tech conference. He attended lectures, not as a guest speaker, but as a curious student. He laughed more, worked less. And when he did work, it wasn't to survive, it was to create. To mentor. To build something bigger than himself, without it costing his soul. There were moments, of course, small flickers, where the old guilt tried to creep in. On holidays. On his birthday. When he passed families in parks and saw fathers playing catch or mothers brushing hair from their children's eyes. There was a time, long ago, when he would have done anything for that kind of connection with his own family. But he had come to accept a painful truth. Not all blood is family. And not all family deserves a second chance. His healing wasn't dramatic. There were no tearful monologues, no breakthrough therapy sessions. Just time. Just distance. Just the quiet realization that it was okay to walk away from people who hurt you, even if they raised you. One afternoon, while sketching a layout for a tech education startup he was funding, Theo received a call from an unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something in him, maybe closure, maybe curiosity, pressed accept. Hello? There was a pause. Then, a tired, hoarse voice he hadn't heard in over a year. Theo. He didn't respond. It's Dad. Still nothing. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I get that. I just. The voice trailed off, then returned shakier. I wanted to say goodbye. Theo remained silent. Not because he didn't care. But because he no longer needed anything from this man. Not even an apology. I'm sick, his father continued. It's real this time. I don't know how much longer I've got. Another pause. Your mother. She doesn't talk about it, but I know she regrets everything. I do too. I wish I'd listened when you first said you were drowning. I thought you'd bounce back. I didn't think you needed us. Theo finally spoke. You never checked. His father inhaled sharply on the other end. I know. I called once, Theo said, his voice steady. From the emergency room. Panic attack. I told Mom. She said you were busy. I remember, the voice whispered. She told me a week later. I was ashamed. Theo exhaled slowly. You should be. There was a silence between them. Not the kind that begged to be filled, but the kind that said, this is the end of something. I hope you find peace, Theo said finally. I hope you do too, his father replied. You deserve it. Click. The line went dead. Theo didn't cry. He didn't sit in stunned silence. He simply stood, stretched, and returned to his workbench, where a half-built laptop prototype waited for a new thermal modulator. That night, he journaled for the first time in weeks. They're fading now. Not gone. Just quiet. I used to think I needed their apology to move on. But maybe I just needed to see myself without their weight. I don't forgive them, not because I'm angry, but because I'm free. And that's enough. Months passed. Eric never contacted him again. Through mutual friends and distant gossip, Theo heard bits and pieces. Eric was working security at a warehouse, the kids were adjusting, their parents had sold their house and moved to a smaller place near a retirement village. Their church friends had cooled off after the truth about the loan, the silence, and the court battle made its way around. Meanwhile, Theo's world expanded. His startup launched with rave reviews, affordable, practical coding programs tailored for underprivileged youth and career shifters. His platform gained traction, and within a year, national outlets were calling him a quiet revolutionary in education tech. But Theo never sought recognition. He only ever wanted one thing: to live unburdened. One spring evening, while watching the city lights flicker below, he got an email. No subject line. No message body. Just a photo. It was a scanned picture from years ago, he and Erica's kids, sitting in front of a treehouse their dad helped them build. Both smiling. Both innocent. No sender name. No follow-up. Theo stared at the image for a long time. Then, gently, he clicked archive. Not delete. Not save. Just archive. Because that part of his life wasn't something to erase. It was something to outgrow. The next morning, he stood on stage at a local community college, giving a keynote about resilience and rebuilding. I used to think my biggest strength was loyalty, he told the room. But I learned it was something else: boundaries. The courage to say enough and mean it. Because sometimes, the only way to love yourself is to walk away. Applause thundered. But Theo just smiled, humble and whole. Later that night, he walked home beneath a sky full of stars, breathing in deeply as a soft breeze kissed his face. And for the first time in his life, he didn't feel like he was running from anything. He was just living. Finally, truly, and completely free.